a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Myanmar. Myanmar, officially the Republic of the Union of Myanmar and formerly known as Burma, is a sovereign state in Southeast Asia. Myanmar is bordered by India and Bangladesh to its west, Thailand and Laos to its east, and People's Republic of China to its north and northeast. To its south, about one-third of Myanmar's total perimeter of 5,876 kilometers forms an uninterrupted coastline of 1,930 kilometers along the Bay of Bengal and the Andaman Sea. The country's 2014 census counted the population to be 51 million people. As of 2017, the population is about 54 million. Myanmar is 676,578 square kilometers in size. Its capital city is Naypyidaw, and its largest city and former capital is Yangon. Myanmar has been a member of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations since 1997. Early civilizations in Myanmar included the Tibeto-Burman-speaking Pyu city-states in Upper Burma and the Mon kingdoms in Lower Burma. In the 9th century, the Bamar people entered the Upper Irrawaddy Valley and, following the establishment of the pagan kingdom in the 1050s, the Burmese language, culture and Theravada Buddhism slowly became dominant in the country. The pagan kingdom fell due to the Mongol invasions, and several warring states emerged. In the 16th century, reunified by the Taungoo dynasty, the country was, for a brief period, the largest empire in the history of mainland Southeast Asia. The early 19th century Konbaw dynasty ruled over an area that included modern Myanmar and briefly controlled Manipur and Assam as well. The British took over the administration of Myanmar after 3 Anglo-Burmese wars in the 19th century and the country became a British colony. Myanmar was granted independence in 1948 as a democratic nation. Following a coup d'état in 1962, it became a military dictatorship. For most of its independent years, the country has been engrossed in rampant ethnic strife, and its myriad ethnic groups have been involved in one of the world's longest-running ongoing civil wars. During this time, the United Nations and several other organizations have reported consistent and systematic human rights violations in the country. In 2011, the military junta was officially dissolved following a 2010 general election, and a nominally civilian government was installed. This, along with the release of Aung San Suu Kyi and political prisoners, has improved the country's human rights record and foreign relations, and has led to the easing of trade and other economic sanctions. There is, however, continuing criticism of the government's treatment of ethnic minorities, its response to the ethnic insurgency, and religious clashes. In the landmark 2015 election, Aung San Suu Kyi's party won a majority in both houses. However, the Burmese military remains a powerful force in politics. Myanmar is a country rich in jade and gems, oil, natural gas, and other mineral resources. In 2013, its GDP stood at $56.7 billion and its GDP at $221.5 billion. The income gap in Myanmar is among the widest in the world, as a large proportion of the economy is controlled by supporters of the former military government. Myanmar ranks 145 out of 188 countries in human development, according to the Human Development Index. Etymology. Both the names Myanmar and Burma derive from the eponym Brahma Desha, after Brahma. Myanmar is the transliteration of Brahma, where B and M are interchangeable in the regional language, while Burma is the British colonial official's phonetic equivalent. For the first half of Brahma Desha, the ancient name of the region, Brahma is part of the Hindu Trinity, a deity with 4 heads. In 1989, the military government officially changed the English translations of many names dating back to Burma's colonial period or earlier, including that of the country itself. Burma became Myanmar. The renaming remains a contested issue. Many political and ethnic opposition groups and countries continue to use Burma because they do not recognize the legitimacy of the ruling military government or its authority to rename the country. In April 2016, soon after taking office, Aung San Suu Kyi clarified that foreigners are free to use either name, because there is nothing in the constitution of our country that says that you must choose any term in particular. The country's official full name is the Republic of the Union of Myanmar. Countries that do not officially recognize that name use the long form, Union of Burma, instead. In English, the country is popularly known as either Burma or Myanmar. Both these names are derived from the name of the majority Burmese Bamar ethnic group. Myanmar is considered to be the literary form of the name of the group, while Burma is derived from Bamar, the colloquial form of the group's name. Depending on the register used, the pronunciation would be or. The name Burma has been in use in English since the 18th century. Burma continues to be used in English by the governments of many countries, such as Canada and the United Kingdom. Official United States policy retains Burma as the country's name, although the State Department's website lists the country as Burma, and Barack Obama has referred to the country by both names. The Czech Republic officially uses Myanmar, although its Ministry of Foreign Affairs mentions both Myanmar and Burma on its website. The United Nations uses Myanmar, as do the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Australia, Russia, Germany, China, India, Bangladesh, Norway, Japan and Switzerland. Most English-speaking international news media refer to the country by the name Myanmar, including the BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, Reuters, RT and the Australian Broadcasting Corporation/Radio Australia. Myanmar is known with the name deriving from Burma as opposed to Myanmar in Spanish, Italian, Romanian, and Greek, Burmania being the local version of Burma in the Spanish language. For example, Myanmar used to be known as Burmania in Portuguese, and as Burmany in French. As in the past, French language media today consistently use Burmany. Prehistory. Archaeological evidence shows that Homo erectus lived in the region now known as Myanmar as early as 750,000 years ago, with no more erectus finds after 75,000 years ago. The first evidence of Homo sapiens is dated to about 25,000 BP, with discoveries of stone tools in central Myanmar, evidence of Neolithic age domestication of plants and animals, and the use of polished stone tools dating to sometime between 10,000 and 6,000 BC has been discovered in the form of cave paintings in Pardalint caves. The Bronze Age arrived circa 1500 BC, when people in the region were turning copper into bronze, growing rice and domesticating poultry and pigs. They were among the first people in the world to do so. Human remains and artifacts from this era were discovered in Monawa district in the Sagaing division. The Iron Age began around 500 BC, with the emergence of iron-working settlements in an area south of present-day Mandalay. Evidence also shows the presence of rice-growing settlements of large villages and small towns that traded with their surroundings as far as China between 500 BC and 200 AD. Iron Age Burmese cultures also had influences from outside sources such as India and Thailand, as seen in their funerary practices concerning child burials. This indicates some form of communication between groups in Myanmar and other places, possibly through trade. Early city-states. Around the 2nd century BC, the first known city-states emerged in central Myanmar. The city-states were founded as part of the southward migration by the Tibeto-Burman-speaking Pyu people, the earliest inhabitants of Myanmar of whom records are extant, from present-day Yunnan. The Pyu culture was heavily influenced by trade with India, importing Buddhism as well as other cultural, architectural and political concepts, which would have an enduring influence on later Burmese culture and political organization. By the 9th century, several city-states had sprouted across the land, the Pyu in the central dry zone, Mon along the southern coastline and Arakanese along the western littoral. The balance was upset when the Pyu came under repeated attacks from Nanzhao between the 750s and the 830s. In the mid to late 9th century, the Bamar people founded a small settlement at Bagan. It was one of several competing city-states until the late 10th century, when it grew in authority and grandeur. Imperial Burma. Pagan gradually grew to absorb its surrounding states until the 1050s-1060s, when Anratta founded the Pagan Kingdom, the first ever unification of the Irrawaddy Valley and its periphery. In the 12th and 13th centuries, The Pagan Empire and the Khmer Empire were two main powers in mainland Southeast Asia. The Burmese language and culture gradually became dominant in the upper Irrawaddy Valley, eclipsing the Pyu, Mon and Pali norms by the late 12th century. Theravada Buddhism slowly began to spread to the village level, although Tantric, Mahayana, Hinduism, and folk religion remained heavily entrenched. Pagans, rulers and wealthy built over 10,000 Buddhist temples in the pagan capital zone alone. Repeated Mongol invasions toppled the 4-century-old kingdom in 1287. Pagans' collapse was followed by 250 years of political fragmentation that lasted well into the 16th century. Like the Burmans 4 centuries earlier, Shan migrants who arrived with the Mongol invasions stayed behind. Several competing Shan states came to dominate the entire northwestern to eastern arc surrounding the Irrawaddy Valley. The valley too was beset with petty states until the late 14th century when two sizable powers, Ava Kingdom and Hanthawaddy Kingdom, emerged. In the west, a politically fragmented Arakan was under competing influences of its stronger neighbors until the Kingdom of Mraukyu unified the Arakan coastline for the first time in 1437. Early on, Ava fought wars of unification, but could never quite reassemble the lost empire. Having held off Ava, Hanthawaddy entered its golden age, and Arakan went on to become a power in its own right for the next 350 years. In contrast, constant warfare left Ava greatly weakened, and it slowly disintegrated from 1481 onward. In 1527, the Confederation of Shan states conquered Ava itself, and ruled Upper Myanmar until 1555. Like the Pagan Empire, Ava, Hanthawaddy, and the Shan states were all multi-ethnic polities. Despite the wars, cultural synchronization continued. This period is considered a golden age for Burmese culture. Burmese literature grew more confident, popular, and stylistically diverse, and the second generation of Burmese law codes as well as the earliest Pan-Burma chronicles emerged. Hanthawaddy monarchs introduced religious reforms that later spread to the rest of the country. Many splendid temples of Mraukyu were built during this period. Taungoo and colonialism. Political unification returned in the mid-16th century, due to the efforts of Taungoo, a former vassal state of Ava. Taungoo's young, ambitious King Taban Shweti defeated the more powerful Hanthawaddy in the Taungoo-Hanthawaddy War. His successor Bayonaung went on to conquer a vast swath of mainland Southeast Asia including the Shan states, Lan Na, Manipur, Mong Mao, the Ayutthaya Kingdom, Lan Xang, and southern Arakan. However, the largest empire in the history of Southeast Asia unraveled soon after Bayonaung's death in 1581, completely collapsing by 1599. Ayutthaya seized Tenasserim and Lan Na, and Portuguese mercenaries established Portuguese rule at Thanian. The dynasty regrouped and defeated the Portuguese in 1613 and Siam in 1614. It restored a smaller, more manageable kingdom, encompassing Lower Myanmar, Upper Myanmar, Shan states, Lan Na and Upper Tenasserim. The restored Taungoo kings created a legal and political framework whose basic features would continue well into the 19th century. The crown completely replaced the hereditary chieftainships, with appointed governorships in the entire Irrawaddy Valley, and greatly reduced the hereditary rights of Shan chiefs. Its trade and secular administrative reforms built a prosperous economy for more than 80 years. From the 1720s onward, the kingdom was beset with repeated Meithei raids into Upper Myanmar and a nagging rebellion in Lan Na. In 1740, the Mon of Lower Myanmar founded the restored Hanthawaddy Kingdom. Hanthawaddy forces sacked Ava in 1752, ending the 266-year-old Taungoo dynasty. After the fall of Ava, the Konbang Hanthawaddy War involved one resistance group under a Lampire defeating the restored Hanthawaddy, and, by 1759, he had reunited all of Myanmar and Manipur, and driven out the French and the British, who had provided arms to Hanthawaddy. By 1770, the Lampire's heirs had subdued much of Laos and fought and won the Burmese-Siamese War against Ayutthaya, and the Sino-Burmese War against Qing China. With Burma preoccupied by the Chinese threat, Ayutthaya recovered its territories by 1770, and went on to capture Lan Na by 1776. Burma and Siam went to war until 1855. but all resulted in a stalemate, exchanging to Nasarim and Lan Na. Faced with a powerful China and the resurgent Ayutthaya in the east, King Bodor Paya turned west, acquiring Arakan, Manipur, and Assam. It was the second largest empire in Burmese history, but also one with a long ill-defined border with British India. The breadth of this empire was short-lived. Burma lost Arakan, Manipur, Assam and Nasarim to the British in the First Anglo-Burmese War. In 1852, the British easily seized Lower Burma in the Second Anglo-Burmese War. King Mindon Min tried to modernize the kingdom, and in 1875 narrowly avoided annexation by ceding the Karenni states. The British, alarmed by the consolidation of French Indochina, annexed the remainder of the country in the Third Anglo-Burmese War in 1885. Konbaung kings extended restored Taungoo's administrative reforms, and achieved unprecedented levels of internal control and external expansion. For the first time in history, the Burmese language and culture came to predominate the entire Irrawaddy Valley. The evolution and growth of Burmese literature and theatre continued, aided by an extremely high adult male literacy rate for the era. Nonetheless, the extent and pace of reforms were uneven, and ultimately proved insufficient to stem the advance of British colonialism. Burma in British India. The 18th century saw Burmese rulers, whose country had not previously been of particular interest to European traders, seek to maintain their traditional influence in the western areas of Assam, Manipur, and Arakan. Pressing them, however, was the British East India Company, which was expanding its interests eastwards over the same territory. Over the next 60 years, diplomacy, raids, treaties and compromises continued until, after 3 Anglo-Burmese wars, Britain proclaimed control over most of Burma. British rule brought social, economic, cultural and administrative changes. With the fall of Mandalay, all of Burma came under British rule, being annexed on 1 January 1886. Throughout the colonial era, many Indians arrived as soldiers, civil servants, construction workers, and traders and, along with the Anglo-Burmese community, dominated commercial and civil life in Burma. Rangoon became the capital of British Burma and an important port between Calcutta and Singapore. Burmese resentment was strong and was vented in violent riots that paralyzed Yangon on occasion all the way until the 1930s. Some of the discontent was caused by a disrespect for Burmese culture and traditions, such as the British refusal to remove shoes when they entered pagodas. Buddhist monks became the vanguards of the independence movement. Uy Zara, an activist monk, died in prison after a 166-day hunger strike to protest against a rule that forbade him to wear his Buddhist robes while imprisoned. Separation of British Burma from British India. On 1 April 1937, Burma became a separately administered colony of Great Britain and Bamar the first Prime Minister and Premier of Burma. Bamar was an outspoken advocate for Burmese self-rule and he opposed the participation of Great Britain, and by extension Burma, in World War II. He resigned from the Legislative Assembly and was arrested for sedition. In 1940, before Japan formally entered the Second World War, Aung San formed the Burma Independence Army in Japan. A major battleground, Burma was devastated during World War II. By March 1942, within months after they entered the war, Japanese troops had advanced on Rangoon and the British administration had collapsed. A Burmese executive administration headed by Bamar was established by the Japanese in August 1942. Wingate's British Chindits were formed into long-range penetration groups trained to operate deep behind Japanese lines. A similar American unit, Merrill's Marauders, followed the Chindits into the Burmese jungle in 1943. Beginning in late 1944, Allied troops launched a series of offensives that led to the end of Japanese rule in July 1945. The battles were intense, with much of Burma laid waste by the fighting. Overall, the Japanese lost some 150,000 men in Burma. Only 1,700 prisoners were taken. Although many Burmese fought initially for the Japanese as part of the Burma Independence Army, many Burmese, mostly from the ethnic minorities, served in the British Burma Army. The Burma National Army and the Arakan National Army fought with the Japanese from 1942 to 1944, but switched allegiance to the Allied side in 1945. Under Japanese occupation, 170,000 to 250,000 civilians died. Following World War II, Aung San negotiated the Panglong Agreement with ethnic leaders that guaranteed the independence of Myanmar as a unified state. Aung San Y. Pekin, Bo Muang, Samwonggi, Dr. Zain Myomong, Myoma Yuthan Kaiway were among the negotiators of the historical Panglong Conference negotiated with Bamar leader General Aung San and other ethnic leaders in 1947. In 1947, Aung San became deputy chairman of the Executive Council of Myanmar, a transitional government. But in July 1947, political rivals assassinated Aung San and several cabinet members. Brought to you by WikiVidi documentaries. Would you like to know more?